Tonight's Township Committee meeting. Adequate notice of the October 8th, 2020 Township Committee meeting. Regular and legal and conference work sessions have been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act. By posting written notice and agenda of the meetings on the bulletin board at the municipal building located at Route 10 in Whitney, by posting on the township's website, and by emailing such notice and agenda to the following newspapers: Morris County's Daily Record, the Star Ledger, the Hanover Eagle, and by filing the same with the township clerk.
Just before we take roll call, can you hear us?
No, I can hear you, but I couldn't hear the other gentleman.
Okay,
Weak.
thank you. On roll call, Mr. Cahill?
Here.
Mr. Gallagher? Mr. Gallagher? Mr. Mahalko? Here. Mr. Francioli?
Here.
And Mr. Ferramosca.
Okay.
5 members in
At
attendance.
this time, for those who can stand, please join us with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Meeting Cahill.
Please remain standing for the prayer. Almighty God, we ask that you bless this governing body with an abundance of wisdom and understanding, so that every deliberation will result in actions which will promote the common good and the welfare for all of the people of Hanover Township. Amen.
Thank you.
You too. When we do it, then you do it.
Okay, Joe, you ready for it? Okay, our first order of business for this evening is a special presentation. We have a proclamation and a plaque to the members of the Hanover Township Senior Citizens Club upon its 50th anniversary.
Wow.
So are there any representative here this evening that we can bestow the plaque to? Okay, please come forward. And whereas the proclamation of Township Committee of the Township of Hanover congratulating the members of the Senior Citizen Club of Hanover Township upon the club's 50th anniversary, and in grateful recognition of the club's dedicated service and commitment to its members and the community. The Senior Club is a treasure to Hanover Township. The club had its first meeting on October 14th in 1970 in the home of one of its organizers, and 25 members were in attendance. Whereas the officers and members of the club have worked tirelessly and effectively during the past 50 years to offer senior citizens the opportunity to interact socially and develop social, educational, recreational projects that enhance their quality of life. On this occasion, the 50th anniversary, Senior Citizens Club of Hanover Township is being recognized by a Township Committee for its outstanding service and leadership. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Township Committee of Township of Hanover, the following, and Mr. Giorgio will read our plaque.
Okay, Hanover Township Distinguished Community Service Award presented to the Senior Citizens Club of Hanover Township, a leading service organization, upon the auspicious occasion of the club's 50th anniversary, and in high esteem of its exemplary leadership, commitment, and faithful service to the club membership and the Hanover Township community, bestowed by the Township Committee on this 8th day of October 2020.
Congratulations, Mr. Oxley. Please let our seniors know how much we appreciate them in our town.
Yes, and we appreciate the award and recognition. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Thanks for coming out tonight. Take care, Kenny.
Take care.
Okay, our next order of business, we have a communication. This is a letter of thanks to Hanover Township and appreciation from Robert Iannacone on behalf of the Iannacone family, and I'd ask Mr. Giorgio to read this into the record.
Okay, it's a letter dated, received on September 28th from Bob Iannacone, and it reads as follows: Mayor, Committeemen, and Administration, on behalf of my family, I would like to thank the leadership, administration, and staff of Hanover Township for their recognition, thoughts, and prayers for our father Sal this past month. Hanover Township was a great part of Sal's life. Sal lived Hanover Township, and as you all know, he remained dedicated to the improvement and maintenance of its quality of life of Hanover throughout his life. All of you were valued friends, and he was honored to have had the opportunity to serve with each of you. Sal and these children could not have grown up in a better community. We are thankful for Sal and all your efforts to make Hanover Township the best community possible to live and grow. Yours and Sal's efforts will benefit families in Hanover Township for years to come. Thank you. Sincerely, Bob Iannico.
Thank you, Mr. Giorgio.
Okay, next item of business, ladies and gentlemen, members of Township Committee, is the approval of the Township Committee's September 10th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. May we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
So approved. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the next portion of business, as I indicated briefly in the beginning, will be public hearing on consideration of the adoption of several ordinances. And we're going to be taking each of these ordinances individually, especially those that deal with the redevelopment plans. So I want to point out that once we get to the point where we will entertain comments from the public, I would ask that those individuals speak clearly and distinctly, give their names and addresses for the record, and once again, we will time you, one opportunity to speak, not to exceed 4 minutes. This is not going to be an exchange of dialogue between the governing body and members of the governing and members of the public. It is simply to obtain the input of members of the public on each of these ordinances. So with that in mind, the first ordinance is docketed as ordinance number 24-20. It's an ordinance of the Township Committee of the Township of Hanover in the County of Morris, State of New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 166 of the Code of the Township, entitled Land Use and Development Legislation, by amending Article 28D1, entitled RM6 Residence District, and all related regulations. We'll point out for the benefit of the public that this ordinance was sent to all property owners within 200 feet. In fact, we exceeded the 200 feet limitation, and we sent it to a lot more individuals in order to maintain transparency. The ordinance and the notice of introduction also appeared in full in the September 16th, 2020 issue of the Daily Record in accordance with law. And the ordinance was then referred to the Hanover Township Planning Board for review and recommendation, and was so filed by the Morris County Office of Planning and Preservation. We also have from the Hanover Township Planning Board, as is required by the municipal land use law, a letter which I will now read into the record. Dear Mr. Giorgio, at its September 22nd, 2020 meeting, the Planning Board reviewed and discussed Ordinance 24-2020, which has been referred to the Board by the Township Committee as required by the municipal land use law at NJSA 40:55D-26A. If adopted, Ordinance 24-20 would amend the development standards for the RM6 zone district near Morristown Airport. The amendment is intended to satisfy the terms of a settlement agreement between the township and the property owner in order to address a portion of the township's affordable housing obligation. The Planning Board has determined that Ordinance 24-20 is substantially consistent with the master plan. The land use plan element notes that the township has entered into an amended settlement agreement to zone the area for inclusionary multifamily housing as part of its efforts to address its state-imposed affordable housing obligation. The housing plan element of the master plan also discusses the settlement agreement, the affordable housing obligation, and the zoning of the property to address that obligation. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on ordinance 24-20. Very truly yours. It's signed by Peter Denegris, Vice Chair of the Planning Board. In addition, yesterday afternoon, I received a lengthy letter. We will not read it into the record. It has been distributed to members of the Township Committee, the Township's planner, and the Township Attorney, but it will be entered into the permanent record of the minutes of this meeting. And it's a letter from the Director of Facilities and Operations for D&M Airport Developers, which are the operators of Morristown Municipal Airport. And I understand there's a representative from Morristown Municipal Airport present, and I believe he will be addressing the Township Committee at this time during the public portion. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this time I would ask the governing body for a motion to open the meeting for public comment.
Motion to...
You have a motion by Mr. Cahill, seconded by Mr. Mahalko. A roll call to open the meeting for public comment. Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Mr. Mahalko?
Yes.
Mr. Francioli?
Aye.
Mr. Gallagher?
Aye.
And Mr. Francesco.
Aye.
Is there anyone present first in the main meeting room to speak to the Township Committee? Yeah, you can please stand and give your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Corey Hanlon, Manager of Communication and Government Relations for DM Airports Limited.
In here.
Morristown Airport, at 8 Airport Road, Morristown, New Jersey.
Excuse me, so we have the benefit of the people who are listening. Could you step up to the microphone?
Sure, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you for the seat, and thanks, committee, for the chance to address. As you mentioned, Mr. Giorgio, upon receiving the ordinance, we did submit the letter to the committee on behalf outlining two main points that we, as the airport operator in close proximity to this proposed development, would like to bring forth. The first request essentially refers to dealing with the developer and some considerations taking with the actual ways to mitigate the airport impact on a potential residential development at the 2535 Airport Road. We would suggest certain provisions, maybe along the lines of construction materials and certain methods that are able to help soundproof and sort of minimize as much impact. As we all are aware, residents in close proximity to an airport are known to make noise complaints regardless of
Can't hear.
actions taken by the airport. Can you move closer, sir?
Excuse me, please. We have someone speaking. I'm sorry about the phone connection. There's not much we can do about that. Sir, maybe you can just put the microphone down closer to you.
Sure.
And if you want to remove your mask, maybe that's the best thing, so the people on the...
Is that all right with the committee to remove?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So as we mentioned, with the potential to minimize some of the airport impacts with certain considerations for construction materials would be one of our suggestions. Along with construction materials, we would look at site development as well to help reduce pedestrian and vehicular traffic that may impede some of the unauthorized access to the airport, as well as vehicular traffic for emergency responses or airport equipment that frequently moves around the airport, fuel trucks, airport operations vehicles, of the like. The second request, as outlined in the letter, that we would like to bring up is any chance, we would strongly suggest that the airport be considered in a review process or a review board that comes up in terms of site planning, site review, layout of the site as well. We would strongly consider or be willing and able to participate in that review board moving forward.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public wishing to address the Township Committee on the teleconference dealing with ordinance 24-20? If so, please give your name and address for the record. Anyone else present in the main meeting room wishing to address the Township Committee on this ordinance? Seeing none, hearing none, may we have a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 24-20.
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Faramaska.
Second.
A second by Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Francioli. On roll call to close the public hearing. Mr. Cahill.
Aye.
Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Mahalka.
Yes.
Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
And Mr. Faramaska. Now, we'll have a motion. Yes, sir.
If I may, just Mr. Giorgio and Mayor, Fred Semro, Township Attorney, to the comments that were raised by Mr. Hanlon, I forwarded his comments to the attorney for the property owner for Airport Road, and I also forwarded the response to Mr. Hanlon and the administration, so we have that on record. But I think in summary, certainly it's always good that that type of communication is in order, but as the property owner indicated, there is going to be a site plan application. There'll be an opportunity to ask questions about the development and things of that nature. And it's important to note, this has to get approval by the Federal Aviation Administration because the construction's near the airport, and the airport's there first. So these residents would be knowing that the construction and the property is going to be developed near the airport, which already exists. But we did forward those comments on to the property owner. I just wanted to relay that to the record, for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Semra. Okay, we've closed the public hearing now. May we have a motion for adoption?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Francioli.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gallagher. On roll call for adoption of ordinance 24-20 as it relates to the RM6 Residence District and all regulations for the Airport Road property. On roll call for adoption, Mr. Cahill.
Aye.
Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Mahalka.
Yes.
Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
And Mr. Faramaska.
Aye.
So adopted. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, our next order of business is public hearing on ordinance 25-20. It's an ordinance of the Township Committee of the Township of Hanover, authorizing the execution of a lease agreement with the Hanover Tigers Youth Football and Cheerleading in operating the B Meadow Park Brickyard Concession Facility between October 1st, 2020 through November 30th, 2020 during the football season. We have the proof of publication that the ordinance and the notice of introduction appeared in full in the September 16th issue of the Daily Record in accordance with law. So at this time, ladies and gentlemen, if a member of the Township Committee could move to open the public hearing.
Make the motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Mahalka,
Second.
second by Mr. Cahill. On roll call, Mr. Cahill,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Aye.
Mr. Mahalka,
Yes.
Mr. Francioli,
Aye.
and Mr. Faramaska.
Aye.
Is there anyone present in the main meeting room or via teleconference to be heard concerning ordinance 25-20? Hearing none, seeing none, may we have a motion to close on the public hearing?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Faramaska,
Second.
second by Mr. Gallagher. On roll call to close the public hearing, Mr. Cahill,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Aye.
Mr. Mahalka,
Yes.
Mr. Francioli,
Aye.
and Mr. Faramaska.
Aye.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a vote on adoption. Again, this is ordinance 25-20, dealing with the lease agreement for the Hanover Tigers Youth Football and Cheerleading to operate the lease concession area at the Brickyard Concession Facility.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Mahalka,
Second.
second by Mr. Faramaska. On roll call for adoption of ordinance 25-20. Mr. Cahill,
Aye.
Mr. Gallagher,
Aye.
Mr. Mahalka,
Yes.
Mr. Francioli,
Aye.
and Mr. Faramaska.
Aye.
So adopted. Okay, Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we continue now with ordinance 26-20. And this is another redevelopment ordinance that I mentioned we had 3. This ordinance is an ordinance of the Township Committee of the Township of Hanover, amending the redevelopment plan for property located on Route 10 and Mount Pleasant Avenue, and also designated as Block 4001, a portion of Lot 9, Lots 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, in Block 8803, in Block 4001, and Lot 17 in Block 8803. Once again, we sent out notices to all the property owners in excess of 200 feet of those lot blocks which constitute the former Pine Plaza shopping mall. The ordinance was also referred to the Hanover Township Planning Board for review and recommendation. It was also sent to the Office of Planning and Preservation at the County of Morris and has been so filed. We have a letter from the Hanover Township Planning Board which reads as follows. Dear Mr. Giorgio, at its September 22nd, 2020 meeting, the Planning Board reviewed and discussed Ordinance 26-20, which had been referred to the Board by the Township Committee as required by the local redevelopment and housing law at NJSA 40A:12A-7E. If adopted, Ordinance 26-20 would amend the previously adopted redevelopment plan for a portion of the existing redevelopment area and on the east side of Route 10, which includes the Pine Plaza Shopping Center and the Midas facility. The redevelopment plan is intended in part to address a portion of the township's affordable housing obligation and to redevelop the failed Pine Plaza Shopping Center. The amendment would allow, as an alternative option for commercial development under the B10 zone standards for the commercial portion of the development, as set forth in the settlement agreement between the Township and JMF Acquisitions, LLC. The residential standards in the redevelopment plan would not be amended by Ordinance 26-20. The Planning Board has determined that Ordinance 26-20 is substantially consistent with the master plan, which states that the intent of the plan is to redevelop the area for a mixed-use, village-type of development consisting of a retail, commercial use, and residential use. Ordinance 26-20, while permitting alternative standards for commercial development, maintains the ability for such a mixed-use development while also permitting development under the current plan standards. Thank you for the opportunity to comment upon Ordinance 26-20. Very truly yours, signed Peter DeNegris, Vice Chair of the Planning Board. So at this time, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Township Committee, if we could have a motion to convene the public hearing on Ordinance 26-20. So moved by Mr. Gallagher, seconded by Mr. Ferramasca. On roll call to convene the public hearing. Mr. Cahill.
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Mahalko.
Yes.
Mr. Francioli. Mr. Francioli is recusing himself. And Mr. Ferramasca.
Aye.
At this time, is there anyone in person in chambers wishing to address the governing body concerning Ordinance 26-20 dealing with the former Pine Plaza shopping mall? Is there anyone on the teleconference by phone wishing to comment about this ordinance 26-20?
Yes.
Could you give us your name and address for the record, sir?
Jeffrey Hastings,
1205 Brook Hollow Drive in the Grand Complex in Whippany.
Thank you, sir. Go right ahead.
Well, actually, a lady brought this up earlier at the beginning of the meeting. I overheard it. She was concerned about the increased traffic and the people using the entrance to the Grand Complex on Route 10 as a bypass, a shortcut to Jefferson Road. I'm concerned about that too.
All right, this would be an issue that would come up during site plan. That would be the proper time if, in fact, there is movement to go ahead with this project. It's not proper at this time to comment on an issue that really deals with site plan approval, and that would be the time to address the
Okay, I
planning board.
understand.
Is there anyone else wishing to be heard concerning ordinance 26-20?
Yes, this is Nancy Gowell. I would like to be heard.
Yes, go right ahead. Your name and address for the record?
Nancy Gowell, 303 Brook Hollow Drive, Whippany, New Jersey.
Thank you.
And I also live at the Grant. With all this information that we've received, we've never been told if these units are rentals or if they're going to be owned. Rentals.
Those would be, as far as we know, they would be sales units.
Okay, they're in such close proximity to us that it may actually hurt our sales and because there's close proximity on this side. We're right across the street. If you're selling them for hardly anything and our units are going to be devalued, are we going to get a tax break too? Because of the devaluation, as it is when it's affordable, they're going to be paying less in taxes, and who is going to pick up the tab for the difference? Are we also going to be overtaxed because of that?
These would not be affordable units. That's not the plan. The plan is...
They were going to be affordable units.
No, but
I thought that's why you were why you were putting them there, because you had to make your quota for the town, for Mount Laurel.
That's correct, but there's been a change in negotiations.
Well, we haven't been told about that.
No, that's true, because...
Thank you for telling us.
It's a matter of litigation before the court, that's why.
Well, and actually, Mr. Giorgio, if,
This is Fred Samra, the township attorney. We'll address your question.
Ms. Gall, the administrator's saying that the for sale units are not affordable units. There's just going to be 60 senior rental units, and they're all affordable units.
I can't hear you.
There is just going to be 60 senior rental affordable units on the site.
So 60 senior rentals.
That's right.
Okay.
They're
And
affordable.
what about the townhouses that are going to be above the stores?
No, they're not going to be above the store. They're going to be on the most easternly, they're going to be on the easternly side of the site, and they're going to be near Legion Place on that side. And they're going to be townhomes, and they are not going to be affordable.
Okay. And are those going to be in competition with our sales, though?
Well, anybody could be, everyone has the right to be, part of the market. So I can't answer, as Mr. Giorgio said, about taxes.
Now they're not going to be affordable.
No, there's no change. That's always been the agreement, that there would be 60 rental senior affordable units.
Okay. All right. So that was it. And the others are going to be, are there going to be families in there? Because, I'm just going to say, there's going to be so much traffic, with the stores by themselves, and then you're going to have homeowners that are going to be there. And, it's just going to be crazy. It's already horrible. Has anybody put any thought to that? I understand that when somebody buys the land, they want to profit from it, but at everybody else's expense, it doesn't make sense. It's not fair to everybody else. Our taxes here are pretty high considering we get nothing for it. We have to pay HOA fees so that we can have them remove our snow, and we don't get anything for it over here. We're taxed to death. we're double taxed, and it's really, unfortunate that somebody wants to build over there and so they can
Ma'am.
profit and take away even our sales if we want to sell our houses
Ma'am, you
because
reached
we want to get away from the
Ma'am, you
traffic.
reached the 4-minute limit. Thank you for
I
your
said my
comment.
piece.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the
Well
township
said.
committee?
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the township committee? Is there anyone else on the teleconference wishing to address the township committee?
Yes, I would.
Did you already speak, sir, or? Hello?
Hello?
What is your name and address, please? Can you give us your name and address for the record?
My name is Leonard Wassel, 107 Stone Creek Court, Whippany, New Jersey.
Thank you. Please address your question.
Yeah, my concern is, one is the major impact of traffic. This Route 10 is not built for that type of village that you're going to put in there. Number two, the impact it's going to have on our services as far as police, firemen, ambulance, schools, that are definitely going to increase our taxes because we're not set up for that type of village to be set up. Number two, if this does go through, the taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for the burden of all the social services. Basically, we should do like other states do, and what they have is called an impact fee, that the builder pays a fee on each unit that helps pay for all the services instead of the taxpayers footing the burden.
Any other comments, sir? Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wishing to address the township committee? Is there anyone else on the teleconference wishing to address the township committee? We want to give everyone the opportunity to address the governing body. Okay, hearing none, seeing none, may we have a motion to close on the public hearing on ordinance number 26-20?
Motion closed.
By Mr. Cahill.
Second.
Second by Mr. Faramasco. On roll call to close the public hearing. Mr. Cahill.
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher. Mr. Mahalko.
Yes.
Mr. Francioli.
Recused.
Accused. And Mr. Faramasco.
Aye.
And Mr. Samrau, you wish to address the governing body.
Thank you, Mr. Giorgio. I just want to say for the record, with respect to municipal services, one of the things that was part of the agreement with this development is that the township will not pay for certain services. Those services, unlike other residents, will not be provided by the township. That includes sanitation and snow removal. That was agreed to, and it's part of the agreement with respect to this project. Thank you, Mr. Giorgio.
Thank you, Mr. Samrau. At this time, we have the motion to close the public hearing. And now on adoption, again, this is ordinance 26-20. It's an ordinance of the Township Committee amending the redevelopment plan for the properties located within the Pine Plaza redevelopment area. May we now have a motion for adoption of ordinance number 26-20?
Motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Cahill, second by Mr. Gallagher. On roll call for adoption. Mr. Cahill.
Aye.
Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Mahalko.
Yes.
Mr. Francioli, you're going to abstain and recuse yourself. And Mr. Faramasco.
Aye.
So adopted, ladies and gentlemen. John, thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to move on to our next ordinance. Again, this is another redevelopment ordinance, and we went above and beyond the limit of the 200-foot to notify everyone as much as possible about ordinance number 27-20 in the interest of transparency. Once again, this ordinance was referred to the Hanover Township Planning Board, filed with the Morris County Office of Planning and Preservation, and we have a letter from the Planning Board on ordinance 27-20 which I will read into the record. Dear Mr. Giorgio, at its September 22nd, 2020 meeting, the Planning Board reviewed and discussed Ordinance 27-20, which had been referred to the Board by the Township Committee as required by the local redevelopment and housing law at NJSA 40A-12A-7E. If adopted, Ordinance 27-20 would amend the previously adopted redevelopment plan for the existing redevelopment area on Eden Lane between Parsippany Road and South Jefferson Road. The redevelopment plan is intended in part to address a portion of the township's affordable housing obligation. The Planning Board has determined that Ordinance 27-20 is substantially consistent with the master plan. The land use plan element notes the township has entered into an amended settlement agreement for the property located in the redevelopment area as part of its efforts to address its fair share affordable housing obligation. The land use plan also proposes a mixed-use development containing both commercial and residential land uses, substantially consistent with the proposed redevelopment plan. Similarly, the housing plan element of the master plan discusses the settlement agreement, the affordable housing obligation, and the mixed-use development proposed in the redevelopment plan. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on Ordinance 2020. Very truly yours, Peter DeNegris, Vice Chair of the Planning Board. We'll also note for the record the ordinance and the notice of introduction appeared in full in the September 16th issue of the Daily Record in accordance with law. So at this time, ladies and gentlemen, may we have a motion to convene the public hearing on Ordinance 27-20. Again, this is an ordinance of the Township Committee adopting an amended and restated redevelopment plan for property located on Eden Lane, formerly developed by the Whippany Paperboard Company, and at 39 and 47 Parsippany Road in the Whippany section of the township. It's also designated as Block 3801, Lot 2, Block 4101, Lot 1, and Block 4301, Lot 6, respectively, all as set forth on the tax map of the Township of Hanover. So if we might, if a member of the governing body would move to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Francioli, seconded by Mr. Gallagher. On roll call to do the public hearing, Mr. Cahill.
Aye.
Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Mahalko.
Yes.
Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
And Mr. Faramasca.
Aye.
Is there anyone present in chambers, in person, to address the Township Committee concerning Ordinance 27-20? Sir, yes, if you would step up to the microphone and give us your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Fred Partridge. I live at 805 Dellwood Lane, which is in the Oak Ridge at Hanover Townhouses, which abut this program. I had a couple of quick questions. I'm not sure, in the description, I was wondering what the 32 beds for supportive and special needs, what kind of a facility is that? I was just curious about that. If you recall, I was here several times over the last several years. As I used to walk through that property, there was a very definite and dangerous erosion problem on the right river bank of the Whippany River, which abuts the Oak Ridge at Hanover Townhouses. My question is, or my desire is, that the developer shore up that riverbank, because once that whole development is put in, and it seems like an exciting development, it is certainly going to impact the flow of the river and cause further erosion of the riverbank. And then my last, I'm not really sure how this whole thing takes place, but what are the next steps as to the authorization or granting of this development? And the planning board is, I would assume the planning board is whom I should be addressing to voice these concerns. But once again, I was here several times regarding this issue. I went to the Whippany River Watershed Action Committee, a couple of meetings, and then also the Morris County Parks Commission, who actually owns the Whippany River and the river banks. But once again, it's very important to me that that Whippany River bank, or both sides of the river bank, be supported upon development of this project. Thank you.
Mrs. Zamro, can you address the questions of Mr. Partridge?
Yes, they're very specific, and they're good questions, and I think we really do have good answers. The Oak Ridge Embankment is part of the settlement with the River Park Development and the township, and although there's very limited work that River Park can do right now, before they can take on the main, the most significant aspect of the project, River Park has agreed to take care of the responsibility, the financial responsibility to stabilize the embankment behind the Oak Ridge condominium complex. And they have to do it in accordance with, all of the appropriate rules and guidelines of the law. They're actually acquiring the property from the County of Morris because there really hasn't been any, as you point out, upkeep to that. So that was a critical component because the cost to do that work could have been, above $500,000. But River Park has agreed that before they continue with the significant aspect of their development, they are required to complete the acquisition and the stabilization of the embankment. And with respect to the certain affordable units, that's for, I would say, Hanover has a wonderful track record when it comes to, adults and individuals with disabilities. And that's what those units are, the 32 or so units. And in that case, again, River Park agreed to take on, we had a shortfall of about 5 or 6 units, and they agreed to take on that as well to round out our affordable housing program.
Thank you. Any other comments from members of the public, either present or on the telephone?
Joe?
Yes, there is.
Hold on. We have a member of the public present. Let's take the member of the public who's present here first.
Jim Neidhart, 3414 Appleton Way, Whippany. Appleton Road is right across the street from the Eden Lane development, and my bedroom overlooks the Eden Lane site, the development site. My question relates to the redevelopment plan. I saw the original plans, which I thought were really good. I skimmed through the current version that's online. I think it's a great use compared to the one that many of the residents from both Oak Ridge and Eden Lane fought against a few years ago, the warehouses, the 5 warehouses, industrial warehouses. My question related to development plan is, could somebody on the Township Committee or Attorney Samarow give a brief summary of what's new in this redevelopment plan versus the prior plan? And my 2 areas of concern that I want to question is the biggest difference the addition of 400 or 500 additional units on the westerly side closest to Jefferson Road, I think, which was termed Phase 2. And that's the one thing, because originally, I believe the original number was around 950 units, and more recently, I was told that there was a plan to add 400 or 500 additional. So that's the one question that I'd like some clarification on. And the second one relates to the number and percentage of units that are dedicated for affordables. There was a certain mix that was originally proposed and agreed to as part of the court settlement, where I think 20% were going to be affordables in total. And I just want to know if there is an additional 400 or 500, will that ratio still hold true for the whole entire project?
Okay, Jim, good questions. We have Ed Snekis from Burgess Associates, who, Krista, he's online. Ed, are you hearing everything? Ed? Ed Snekis, are you on the line? Krista, do you want to call him? We have a representative from Burgess, probably can address some of your questions.
Wouldn't Mr. Samaral be familiar with
Address
all these
some of the
details?
stuff.
I'm fine with him doing it.
Okay.
And Mr. Samra, we have two questions here. The original plan was for 950 units. Subsequently, we're looking at additional units.
Yeah.
The number of units, and of these additional units, are we maintaining the ratio which we had of market versus affordable?
Yeah, actually, great questions for the overview. And first, it's a total of 500 units, but it's important to note that the affordable percentage is 15%, which is a little bit less than the first phase, where it was about 17. And they are 1 and 2 bedroom market units, and they are on the westerly side, as you pointed out. And there's
Is that
also...
Area B?
Yes,
The
that's
red.
correct. That's Area B. And it also includes an office building, about an 18,000 square foot office building in the far corner with a separate entrance and egress. So, but what that is that's the next phase of this project. And historically, it came from the overlay zones that were going to be on Parsippany Road, where there was quite a concern about the fact that, development there. So these are down the road for River Park. It would mean one of two things. It would mean that the first phase is successful, and they'd be ready to build this phase. And 250 out of the 500 are in a place right now where there's a body of water. So there's no guarantee that it will be able to be built. If it is, they have the right to do so. If it's not, we've still met our obligation. So that's the overview, and that's where it came from. Those units bring the affordables almost to the exact amount that would have been on Parsippany Road for the overlay zones. So they were essentially transferred, but transferred in the later phase of River Park. And again, if it's successful, then it'll be a great fit. And if it doesn't get that far, we've still met our obligation as a township.
So if it never goes, that we met the obligation?
We met we're giving them the opportunity.
For this round?
Correct.
For this round?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Do you want Ed to make any comments?
Oh, sure, whatever.
Yeah. Ed Snekis, are you on?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Ed. I don't know if you heard Fred's explanation and also the questions from one of the members of the public. Was there anything else you wanted to add about the amended plan that we have up on our monitors?
Yeah, I can go through the slides if you're interested. Or I believe Fred has answered the question to the degree I would have answered the question as well.
Yeah, I think it might be beneficial for those in the room to go through each slide. And for those who are on the line as well.
Certainly.
Yeah, we'll just note to members of the public that the plan is on the website. So anyone who cannot see it here and not present physically can go to the township's website and view the amended plan that we got from Burgess Associates. Ed, go right ahead if you don't mind going through each of the slides.
Okay, hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Good evening, everyone. Ed Snekis from Burgess Associates, professional planners to help put together the redevelopment plan. As was indicated by Mr. Giorgio earlier on, this includes the 3 lots that were always part of the redevelopment area. But specifically, the redevelopment plan covers Area A, what's designated as Area A, within this study area, but then also Area B that you'll see on the first slide. It does not include Area C at this time. That will be subject to a future amendment to the plan at this time. So with that, I'd like to go to the next slide. That should be slide number 2. Let me know if that's in front of you.
Yes, go ahead, Ed.
Okay, thank you. Again, this is an amended and restated redevelopment plan. So it amends the November 14th, 2019 redevelopment plan to the current September 9th, 2020 redevelopment plan. Again, this was also amended pursuant to the Township of Hanover and River Park amended agreement of May 15th, 2020. As was mentioned by the planning board earlier, this addresses the housing element and fair share plan, which is also dated 9/1/2020. It includes only Area A and Area B, and they will be designated RPA and RPB in the plan. Area C, as I mentioned, is not included. The redevelopment plan procedures and processes all stay the same. There were some adjustments to some of the redevelopment criteria in the renegotiation and amendment to this redevelopment plan. Area A, which is the RPA Town Center Zone District, the density and mixed-use town center uses remain the same. We did also refine some of the criteria and regulations within Area A in order to clarify some of the unknown or the ambiguous things that were identified in the ordinance. Area B is the area to the west, as was mentioned earlier. That would be now called the RP-B Residential Office District. It will contain it will permit multifamily residential up to 500 units, including, as was mentioned, a 15% minimum set aside, or 75 units. Or it includes up to 18,000 square feet of office at the corner of South Jefferson and Eden Lane. Next slide, please. Area B is the RPB Residential Office District. Again, this will be subject to a future separate phase. It will be subject to the environmental remediation and permitting relative to the pond filling. There is a settling pond that's on that portion of the property, and that will take some time in order to get that area available for development. But yet the onus will be on the developer in order to get that to happen. It also calls for the extension of the Town Center Drive to make sure there's an interconnected access between the Town Center area and this proposed area of the RPB zone. Included in this is also the Riverwalk improvements. So there are improvements to the Riverwalk area along the Whippany River. It also includes detailed bulk criteria for multifamily buildings and office buildings. It includes within it, noteworthy, is that there's a maximum of 40% of the development for market rate units can be no more than 2 bedrooms. So therefore, there is a limit on the amount of more than 2 bedroom units on the property. The remainder needs to be 1 bedroom or studio or efficiency type units. That will not include, though, the inclusionary units, the affordable units. They need to be in accordance with the appropriate regulations, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. It also includes detailed setback criteria. And lastly, the maximum height for offices is 4 stories, and for multifamily is 4 stories over 2 stories of parking, or 6 stories in total. Next slide, please. Again, the amended criteria calls for Area A and B zone districts. It calls for infrastructure and off-track improvement requirements, specific in reference to architectural and landscape standards, parking and loading regulations, including shared parking, and also calls for sign regulations. Next slide. This slide shows the Area A and Area B locations. Area A has stayed the same as it was before. The Area B was previously not designated for specific criteria, and this amended plan now calls for the designation of criteria for Area B, which I just identified earlier. So this map would help identify those areas to those who are interested in seeing it. Next slide, please. This is the concept plan for Area B, where the areas for development were contemplated or are contemplated on the concept plan. Residential will be closer to and along the interconnected access drive or town center drive that would also access and connect to the town center area. but would also come out to Eden Lane. And at that point, there would also be, on the corner of Eden Lane and Jefferson, is a proposed office building, a small office building of about 4 stories at that location. Next slide, please. Again, the goals that are identified in the redevelopment plan are being furthered by the proposal. It creates a new mixed-use town center, as previously identified, designed and integrated as a comprehensive plan. It creates affordable and alternative living options for the community. It creates job opportunities, shopping, and services, adds key connections of the Patriots Path network along the Whippany River. Also promotes smart growth concepts and green building principles. It also fosters a pedestrian-oriented walkable streetscape configuration between the overall areas of the redevelopment plan. As was mentioned earlier, the response from the planning board for consistency, it is very consistent with the land use amendment in 2004 for a town center. Also, the open space and recreation plan of 2013 that calls for the Patriots Path to be connected. Also consistent with the municipal stormwater management plan of 2005. Additionally, the circulation plan where it calls for Patriots Path and additional pedestrian linkages. Also, the master plan reexamination report and land use plan amendment of 2019. As well as what was mentioned earlier is the amended housing element and fair share plan. This would help promote that. And so with that, that would summarize the overall presentation that we had for everyone this evening to help outline the changes to the amended plan.
Thank you very much for that description, very concise. Appreciate it. We have a question for clarification, Ed, so just give the member of the public to step forward and speak. Go right ahead.
The 15% set aside for affordables, is that 15% just for Area B, with Area A still maintaining 20%?
Yes.
Why are we allowed to do that? I thought we had to have 1 to 4 everywhere. Why is that allowed?
It was part of the negotiations with Fair Share Housing.
Okay.
So we'll always take the lower amount if we can get it. So,
Okay.
but that's really the truth. That's how
Great. Thank
we
you.
did it. Yeah.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Ed. Is there anyone else in chambers wishing to address the Township Committee? Could you please step forward and address the Township Committee, giving your name and address for the record?
Says my name is John, last name is Kovayan, K-O-V-A-I-A-N, and my address is 2604 Cortland Lane,
Thank you.
and that's in Whippany. You don't need the zip code, do you?
Thank you. Please give your comments into the record.
This is the first time that I've seen the maps as they are laid out here. Prior to this, I was not aware of that, and so, getting here, I might have some questions about these. Reviewing the Zone A and the Zone B, or Area A and B, I now do seem to understand that in A, the exit will be out onto Eden Lane, which is like a kind of a T-junction. And so that's how I would exit from my place. And that T then, with the new building there, prior to that it was just a T, but now we'll actually be able to go and break the T and make it an actual intersection, which I'm pointing to into this area. We'll actually be able to kind of break through. Formerly you had to make a left or right. Are you saying now we'll be able to actually go through and enter that Area A from my road?
I guess that's for, in other words, to go straight across.
Yes.
He said, yes, would I be able to go straight through?
And I don't know, Ed, I think the answer is yes on that, but...
Ed, did you understand the question?
Yes, I believe the question had to do with the proposed Town Center Drive intersection with Eden Lane from in Area A.
I think that's
And
correct.
yes, it's anticipated to be a four-way intersection at that location.
A four-way intersection. Thank you, Ed.
I believe signalized as well.
Signalized as well.
Now, there will be, now, in my condo section, there are two exits currently. One will go through into A, but the other exit for us is still going to just be a T intersection. In other words, the two exits from my condo area, not both of them will become a four-way intersection. Is that what we're saying?
Just the one. as I see
Just the
on
one, Ed?
That's correct.
Yes, Mr. Sneck has said just one.
Okay, so why wouldn't we be able to maybe have that B opened up also so that we could go shopping and walk into that area rather than having to use just the one four-way intersection to access that area?
Ed, did you hear that question? Why couldn't there be another four-way intersection so that members of the public from the outside could actually go into the whole development?
And this is from the westerly entrance drive across on the opposite side of Eden Lane, correct?
Into Area B.
I believe it had to do with the environmental restrictions that are in that area. The soonest that a roadway could be connected to Eden Lane was further west along Eden Lane, as it's described in the concept plan, which is on slide 6.
And then just a little bit confused about the, in terms of the stores or the plaza. Pine Plaza, I know that the stores there, are no longer available. Are they going to be, what are we going to do with that area? There'll be new stores in Pine Plaza or buildings? Office buildings? I just wondered what was going on with Pine Plaza, if you're looking at all the stores there that closed down.
Pine Plaza, we spoke about earlier, and we passed an ordinance 26/2020, which is to advance a mixed-use concept of retail stores, residential units, and office. This is separate and apart, totally from Pine Plaza.
Okay, so then, in terms of going through to Pine Plaza through Area A, would there be like some roadway or connection through there to make it easier for us to access Pine Plaza through this Area A?
No. There's no plan for that.
The issue is elevation, the issue is train tracks. It was a part of a discussion, but it was not advanced because of the difficulty in making that happen.
If you look at that triangular area of C, there's a new roadway there, it appears.
And in the triangular area of C, is there a proposed new roadway in that area?
No, there is nothing proposed in that area at this time.
Okay, thank you, Ed.
Okay, that's all for questions, but again, would I be able to access these slides on the internet?
They're on the township's website.
Yes, I just had difficulty accessing those.
If you can let me know what that website address is, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
If you go to hanovertownship.com and then under government, go to introduced ordinances and go to this ordinance number, the PDF file is available there.
Yeah, we'll send it.
Crystal, send it away.
Is there anyone on the telephone wishing to be heard by the township committee on ordinance 27-20?
Yes, there is.
Okay. One at a time, if you would. Name and address for the record.
David Willison, 503 Chandler Lane.
Okay, go right ahead, sir.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the detailed plan. Looks fantastic. And I appreciate the work that you've all done in handling some of the details. I have a couple of concerns, and perhaps you could allay them. Number one, I was hoping you could discuss the impact of these units on the general infrastructure. So, I mean, we talk about things like traffic, but there's also water, sewer, and so forth. And specifically, have there been studies done to evaluate whether, hypothetically speaking, let's say our water system is at currently 90% capacity, and after this, it will be at 99.99% capacity, which theoretically the development would then not have to address, but then in the future it would be something, a can being kicked down the road. Point number two, can you address why the eastern entrance is on the south side of the Whippany River when there's already a road on the north side of the Whippany River? Thank you.
Ed, did you hear those questions?
Yes, I did, and I could also give a response.
Go right ahead.
Good questions regarding traffic and other infrastructure improvements. And I don't mean to sound like we're just kicking the can down the road, but they typically come up at the time of site plan application, as well as submission for permits for infrastructure improvements. These calculations will be fully scrutinized and reviewed at the time of those applications. As you had mentioned with regard to the water supply, there will be a full review as to that availability of water, as well as the ability to provide permitting, because at a development of this scale, the DEP gets involved to review the ability to provide and purvey water. So that will be part and parcel with that thorough review at time of site plan application. The easterly entrance off of Parsippany Road, which I believe you were addressing, the other drive or the other area that exists on the opposite side of the railroad tracks is not of a size or of an area that made sense from a traffic improvement standpoint. And that is why this developer, in addition to making improvements to the Whippany River side slopes for the areas of erosion, they are looking to use that parcel for their entrance drive. It made more sense from the standpoint of a traffic alignment standpoint at that location.
Okay, sir, does that address your questions?
Thank you, yes.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else wishing to be heard at this time on the teleconference? If you state your name and address, please.
Yes, this is John Fiorella.
Yes, sir.
And I'm in the firm of Dyer and Peterson here in Parsippany, and I represent the Morristown and Erie Railway. One of the things that the railway noticed in these revisions is that the setbacks to the railroad are only 10 feet. That's awfully close, especially when the previous ordinances talked about 100 and 200 feet setbacks to the railroad near this location. Railroad is concerned about the safety involved being that close to the railroad, and especially if there were a derailment or some other incident regarding the railroad. And we feel that the committee hasn't really taken that into consideration. And as you know, we've started some litigation over this issue because we're concerned about the safety. And I wanted to see if anybody there would address that issue.
Mr. Samrat, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, first to Mr. Sinikis, I don't believe this amended plan has any impact on the M&E Railroad, if I'm correct, Ed?
Because, yes, you want to
You could just ask Ed, Joe. I don't think...
You know, we have a lot of background on this phone. Will please, everyone, ask your patience by not speaking while we're on the conference call. Ed, did you hear the comment from Mr. Samrow?
No, I'm sorry, I did not.
All right. In answering Mr. Fiorella, Mr. Samrow is asking you a question, so he's going to repeat that question.
Ed, I don't believe this aspect of Area B has any impact on the M&E Railroad and the setbacks as commented by Mr. Fiorella. Is that correct? That's all with respect to Area A.
What we anticipated in Area B is that obviously the entrance drive is going to be further extended and provide sort of a transition between the railroad for at least two locations for multifamily is being proposed. There is another location that does have some proximity to the railroad area, but we do have a 10-foot setback limitation. But yet we feel that with the evolving environmental permits that's going to be necessary for this property and the evolution of the concept plan, that it was not certain as to where the buildings would be falling. It's just understood, though, that the future development is anticipated to be placed around and above parking levels at the level of the railroad. There'll be parking levels at the lower two levels. And those will provide the appropriate transitional features to the residential units, which will front the parking garages on the first two levels, but then be above the parking garages. And I would imagine it's going to be encouraged by market forces to place the units oriented away from the tracks to help to minimize these impacts. Additionally, in applications that I've been involved in, when something is in close proximity to possible noise, like the airport road discussions earlier, during site plan, there are accommodations to be made with regard to any window treatments or wall thicknesses and things of that nature in order to improve the sound deadening ability of the proposed buildings.
You know, there's more than just the sound. With we were looking at the A section there, a 7C, Town Center Zone District and bulk zoning regulations portion. If the homes are going to be above, that means they'll be at the same level as the diesel fumes coming out of the locomotive. Those are the kind of issues that people complain about after they buy the property, you know? And we find ourselves having all kinds of issues. Railroad's only been there 100 years. And, we know what's going to happen, and that's why we're concerned, because we see that situation that, the railroad's going to go through. It's going to go through sometimes in the daytime and sometimes at night. So, it's that kind of a problem, and we want to make sure that gets addressed somewhere.
Well, though, Mr. Fiorella, that is Area A, and the ordinance tonight reflects Area B. Area A, as you indicated, your entity has already filed litigation. I do know that River Park, who is the property owner, had a number of meetings with you and the M&E in an effort to try to work out some type of an accommodation, but that has not been successful. So, and Hanover Township's been named as well.
At least not yet, it hasn't been successful. We're still trying.
Right. So really, at this point, tonight is about Area B, and I guess we would leave the rest of it to the courts if it can't be worked out. But I think Mr. Sinikis did a good job explaining the rationale behind this. And this is an ordinance that River Park, as the property owner, has in fact supported from the standpoint of it accommodates their needs for us to complete our affordable housing obligation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fiorella. Is there anyone else on the teleconference wishing to address the governing body at this time?
Yes.
Your name and address for the record, sir.
Leonard Wassel, 107 Stone Creek Court, Whippany.
Go right ahead with your question, sir.
Then again, I'd like to address that the burden of these hundreds of units that are going to be built will put a burden on our social services. And I'm not talking about snow plowing or garbage removal. I'm talking about major burden to the school systems that will be overcapacitated, the more policemen that will have to be hired for the servicing, ambulance, fire, and I can go on and on and on. I don't think anybody's taken into consideration the services that are going to be needed when you're talking hundreds of units being added to an area that's already burdened already. And I strongly suggest, and they do it in other states, they call it an impact fee, to offset the social services that this township's going to require, that the builder should pay an impact fee per unit to help the taxpayers of this community.
Okay, sir, we'll take your comments into consideration. We thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the Township Committee at this time?
Yes.
Name and address for the record.
Name is Kenneth Hauser. I live at 2006 Vermont Terrace in Whippany. I'm in the Oak Ridge condominiums, and I'm actually a board member as well. And our big concern here is the utilization of Block 4301, Lot 6. We all purchased our homes here, many of us along this piece of property, and paid premiums for them because we were under the impression that we were on preserved, conserved land. Never to be built on, you never had to worry about it, you were going to have woods in your backyard, and now this development is calling for an access road to be built straight through our yards, and this seems like it's going to carry a good percentage of the traffic that a development like this is going to see. Not only are you going to have hundreds of residents, but you're going to have many retailers, employees, customers, trucks, deliveries. We see a constant flow of traffic now flowing through this conserved land out to Parsippany Road. And at Parsippany Road, the entrance, and it's hard to tell by the renderings, but they do look like they're probably only a few hundred feet from our Oak Ridge Drive. Now, Oak Ridge Drive, the entrance to Oak Ridge on Oak Ridge Drive on Parsippany Road is really the only place that you can fully access Oak Ridge. Our Whippany Road entrance, you can only go one way. One way in, one way out. So most of the residents are going to use Parsippany Road. And a few hundred feet down the road, we're going to have this entrance drive. And now at 26 Parsippany Road, we have 139 units under construction right now, and their driveway is lining up directly with Oak Ridge Drive. We're bearing the brunt. We feel that the residents of Oak Ridge are going to bear the brunt of the traffic as a result of this development. The development looks great. I have to say, the access to it is extremely unfavorable to Oak Ridge residents. Now, the plan, and I'm looking at page 11, it says that this lot, which consists of 6.47 acres, is vacant and almost entirely constrained by environmentally sensitive features, but nonetheless has the potential to accommodate access features contemplated by this redevelopment plan. So this sounds to me that this is not certain that this access road is going to be located there. Is that correct? And if that is correct, what is Plan B? Is there a Plan B?
Ed, do you want to comment on the gentleman's question?
Yes, thank you. As part of the concept plan that they've submitted, they do show that entrance drive. And the reason why it's stated that way in the regulations is such to recognize the fact that they will have to seek permitting in order to get the crossing of the Whippany River, as well as to mitigate for any potential impact to wetland or wetland buffers in that area. So that onus will be on the developer, and that's why it's stated that way. It's not contemplated that there is another alternative access. The plan considers that, and that if there's to be any change in that, there would have to be probably an amendment to this plan and come back before the committee.
Like the gentleman said previously, I mean, it just seems that they really should look to make the existing entrance, the existing drive, the access, and not draw all the traffic up to the Oak Ridge direction.
Right.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anything further?
Yes.
Yes.
Will you please identify yourself, name and address for the record?
My name is Kathleen.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. Can you speak a little clearly? Maybe your phone is not...
I'll try again.
Yeah, it
My name is
sounds-
Kathleen Kelleher.
Go right ahead, Ms. Kelleher.
I'm concerned about the addition of hotels. We have 4 hotels within close proximity to our area, and 2 of them are a little sketchy and cause a lot of police activity. Why we need a 5th seems worrisome.
Okay, thank you. Any comment, Ed, to that comment?
I would say in this instance, I would anticipate this to be a different type of hotel because it is going to be right on a township boulevard. It's going to be very public and very visible, as well as to be more of an exclusive, I think, type hotel that's looking to serve the corporate clientele in the area. So I think that brings, as the developer was insisting, it brings more of another audience, another activity to the town center area, furthering the economic viability of the town center concept.
Thank you, Ed.
That's what we're looking for.
But in this day and age, corporate clientele are working from home. So I don't think they're going to get a whole business.
It'll have to be driven by market forces. I do understand your point. You make a good point. We are all working remotely now. But yet, we are anticipating people to go back to work. And so the plan is, for the future, is that that's what the developer was looking for and was needed in order to make the project work.
Thank you, Ed.
Some of the hotels that are a little bit sketchy are right on the road also.
Joe?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question.
Go ahead, Fred.
Yeah,
Mr. Samrau wants to address your question.
I just want to make sure everybody understands, this is an ordinance, and we, have rendered, a certain layout.
2 of the hotels that are in question that are a little bit sketchy are right on a main road.
But to your point, this is not the site plan approval tonight. If the governing body adopts this ordinance, it gives the right for the developer to come in and make their application. They'll have to go before the planning board, address traffic, location, whether it be a hotel, if that's what they choose to construct or not. They have to go through that entire process, notify residents, have a public hearing, and go through all of the requirements of the township code for the development. This gives them the right to make the application, but it does not tonight give them the approval. You'll receive another notification with more specifics as to whatever they, how they choose to go about this, whether it be access or development, and you'll have the right, and the planning board will have the right to make sure that the best interest of the township and the public are served.
Thank you, Mr. Samrau. Is there anyone else wishing to address the Township Committee at this time via teleconference?
Yes.
Name and address for the record, sir.
Roger Brown, 1202 Fox Chase Lane.
Go right ahead, sir.
With all of this development going on in Whippany, has anybody done a comprehensive traffic study as to what the impact is going to be?
Ed?
And if so, is that available for the public to take a look at?
Ed, would you please address that question?
Yes, there has not been a specific overall study of the impacts. That will be the next step. This was necessary in order to address the settlement agreement for affordable housing. And so that was necessary in order to expedite that process and that effort.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on the teleconference wishing to speak to the Township Committee about Ordinance 27-20?
Yes, I have something to add.
What is your name, please?
My name is Jonathan Taylor, and I live at 2005 Vermont Terrace in the Oak Ridge condominium.
Go right ahead, sir.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to thank Ken Hauser. He's our board member who has already discussed the placement of the road, the east entrance that comes out onto Parsippany Road. Right now, Oak Ridge Road is very busy. We have the new complex that is being developed now that's directly across from us. And looking at the site map, Area A, and where the road is going to be placed, not only is it very close to the two other entrances to the two communities, it appears to be right on the curve of the road as well, which to me seems like a pretty dangerous way to enter and exit a community of this size. So I'm hopeful that that will all be taken into consideration before this plan goes further ahead. The other thing is the wooded area, which I also look out upon, paid a premium for my unit so that I would have that privacy. I understand the DEP has to come in and evaluate the area to see that it's suitable to hold a road of this size. I take pictures summer and winter of the area. I can tell you after a heavy rain, most of that area is underwater, particularly in the wintertime when the land freezes. After a heavy rain in the summer, there's a second river that goes through there. I thought it was a branch of the Whippany River when I first moved in, but now I realize it's floodwater that comes off of our development and from adjacent lands that ends up in that area. So the DEP, I believe, is going to give you a very hard time putting a road through there. If a road does go through, in light of the traffic problems we've talked about, I would like to see the road reserved for extreme limited use only, or perhaps emergency use only. I don't believe it should be designated 50% entrance and exit from this community. I'm not so sure that people are going to use Eden Lane, the traffic light, and the traffic on that end, when you know they can skip through and come this way. So although you've said earlier there's no amendment to this plan, I really think that's something that should be considered. Another plan should be drawn up using the existing road that to me seems much better placed and much safer for the type of traffic that's going to be coming through here.
Thank you, sir. Any comment, Ed?
Yeah, the other thing that I recall about the discussions of the other entrance drive was there's limited sight distance due to the other bridge that's further to the north on Parsippany Road. That was also another factor, is the sight distance that was available. But you bring up some very important points that the planning board, I'm sure, will thoroughly review as far as sight lines and sight distance and volume of traffic, and how that traffic can actually be managed at that intersection. That's getting down into those details, as well as the details of drainage and stormwater management. As you had mentioned, there's a stream or intermittent swale, maybe we can call it, that runs from your property down towards the river. I'm not familiar with that, but yet that would be something that would come up for the board review. Board professionals would need to look at the flow of water from on and off site to see how that's being addressed and whether or not it can be properly addressed during that review process.
Thank you for your comments, Ed. Anyone else on the teleconference wishing to address the governing body?
Just one more question.
One at a time, please, and if any background noise, we cannot hear you. So I would ask you to be quiet so that everyone can be heard by the governing body. Your name and address for the record.
Kathleen Kelleher, 1004 Meadowbrook Court again.
I think you already spoke, ma'am. We're limiting it to one person at a time. So if you've already spoken, you've had your turn. Is there anyone else wishing to be heard?
Yes. My name is Valerie Martin. I live at 1001 Edgehill Terrace, which is also the Oak Ridge community. I've been here 16 years. There's people, I know Ken has been here more years. It's a wonderful, wonderful community. I just want this on record. Yes, it's wonderful. The gentleman with the slides did give a good description description. The development is great, homes, businesses, jobs, definitely not a bad thing. But I don't know what's ahead. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a township official. I'm not an engineer. I don't know what's ahead. But having the entrances of 3 communities, entrances and exits, ours, this one with 139 on a curve in the road, and then something 967 people, 967 units, hotels, stores, whatever. I'm sorry. Please consider my community, but consider everything else. Any of you who live here know what happens at, Quick Check, anytime after 4:30. You could be almost to the high school with back traffic. I know nothing about building. I've bought and sold a couple of houses in my life, but good Lord, you're talking about erosion, you're talking about a railroad, I'm talking about traffic. Good Lord, 3 entrances to 3 places. Within, like one of the gentlemen said, a couple of 100 feet. That's insanity. I'm sorry. I would just like that on record. And again, it's Valerie Martin. Thank you for your time, and thank you for having this meeting and for answering the questions.
You're welcome, and it is on the record. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the Township Committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Can name and address, please?
Chang Wang, 1805 Springbrook Court.
Could you repeat your name once again, please?
Chang Wang.
Thank you. How do you spell your last name, please, just so we have it correct?
W-A-N-G.
Very good. Thank you. Can you state your comment, please?
Yes, I just want my voice heard as well. I'm very concerned about entrance drive on the block 14001 lot 6. I commute there, I commute and drive this road every single day on Parsippany Road. It's pretty busy and curly. With extra entrance, I'm very concerned about the safety and the traffic. And also it will destroy the woods, the beautiful woods. That was my concern. I agree with the people live in this community that have spoken previously. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to address the Township Committee?
Yes.
Your name and address, please.
Thank you. It's Wendy Johnson, 1802 Springbrook Court in Whippany, and I'm also in the Oak Ridge community.
Thank you.
Sure. And I wanted to have it also on record and thank Ken Hauser, part of our board, for speaking up on our behalf. And I am also a commuter who comes in and out every day. And he is correct. Most people need to use the Parsippany Road entrance and exit. Right now, because of COVID and a lot of the people still working from home, Bear, who is our neighbor, there's a lot of traffic, and it starts basically at 3:30 in the afternoon. It takes, I don't know how many light cycles to sit through to make a left-hand turn. Once you make that turn, then you've got people making turns into the Quick Check, and it looks like on the plan, this east entrance for the development is not going to be signaled either. I agree with the lady that, I believe it was Valerie, who talked before. It's ridiculous, in my opinion, to have that many entrances and expect people to, number one, make left-hand turns to watch coming from both directions, coming onto a 2-lane road. So I'd really like to have that on the record, please. I think it really needs to be changed. I think the developer absolutely can find a way to make some kind of adjustment so that the flow of traffic comes out onto the road at that intersection, Parsippany, where Billy and Madeline's used to be. Just my opinion, but thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am. Are there any other individuals on the telephone wishing to be heard at this time?
Yes.
Your name and address, sir, for the record.
Yes, my name is John Maniconi. I live at 203 Elmsview View Court. I also live in Oak Ridge Condos. And I want to reinforce what many of my neighbors have said already. It's very concerning that basically an entire town is being built here, and the main access road is being taken off a small road, Parsippany Road, 100 feet or 200 feet down from where two other condos are emptying out onto that street. Those places aren't even built yet, and traffic at that corner is an absolute nightmare. And the thought of having delivery trucks, 1,000 units, businesses, hotels coming out onto basically a road that goes one lane in each direction is going to be extremely difficult for us to deal with. And I would urge the developers to do everything they can to think of another way of entering the development in that area. I think it's unsafe. I think it's going to make the quality of our lives miserable, and I'm concerned about people cutting through our development to avoid some of the traffic as well. Because, again, we have a small development, a lot of families, a lot of kids that are outside, and cars, potentially flying through this neighborhood is not something that I would look forward to. And so I would implore you to do your best to get other people in line behind your project to find a better alternative than what you're proposing for this entrance on Parsippany Road. And I thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to address the Township Committee at this time? Okay, hearing none, at this point, we are going to close the public hearing on ordinance 27-20. This is an ordinance of the Township Committee adopting an amended and restated redevelopment plan for property located on Eden Lane. So at this time, may we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Francioli, seconded by Mr. Faramasca. On roll call, Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
Aye.
Mr. Mahalko?
Yes.
Mr. Francioli?
Aye.
And Mr. Faramasca.
Aye.
Now, on adoption, this is on ordinance 27-20. On adoption, may we have a motion?
After the motion, I'd like to...
You want to comment first?
May I just say one thing, Mr. Georgia? There was a number of comments about Parsippany Road access, and I think with Mr. Stanikis on the phone, I'd just like to confirm, this phase, Area B, does not have access from Parsippany Road. Is that correct, Ed?
Ed, we can't hear you. Can you hear us?
I'm sorry, I had my phone muted to keep down the noise.
Okay.
It actually would possibly connect because of the overall interconnection of the overall town center drive connections. So, it doesn't directly connect, but indirectly it does have a network of road patterns.
But the primary, I thought one of the things the township wanted to make sure is the primary egress and access for this area would not be from Parsippany Road. Like, you'd have to really travel through...
That is correct.
Okay.
That's
All right,
correct. It's more encouraged to go down towards Eden Lane.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Fred.
Thanks.
Now, may we have a motion to adopt ordinance 27-20?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Francioli.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gallagher. On roll call for adoption, Mr. Cahill.
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Mahalko.
Yes.
Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
And Mr. Faramasca.
Aye.
So adopted. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue, our final ordinance for public hearing and adoption is docketed as ordinance 28-20. It's an ordinance of the Township Committee of the Township of Hanover, authorizing the acquisition of Block 5901, lots 13 and 14, as set forth on the tax map of the Township of Hanover, from Claire Spada Scalzo and Jules G. Spada. This is property located next to the Whippany Burying Yard. We have the proof of publication that ordinance 28-20 and the notice of introduction appeared in full in the September 16th issue of the Daily Record in accordance with law. So at this time, ladies and gentlemen, may we have a motion by members of the governing body to convene the public hearing?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Faramasca, seconded by Mr. Gallagher. On roll call, Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
Aye.
Mr. Mahalko?
Yes.
Mr. Francioli?
Aye.
And Mr. Faramasca.
Aye.
Is there anyone in chambers or on the phone wishing to be heard concerning ordinance 28-20? Seeing none, hearing none, may we have a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 28-20? So moved by Mr. Gallagher. Second by Mr. Mahalko. On roll call, Mr. Cahill.
Aye.
Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Mahalko.
Yes.
Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
And Mr. Faramasca.
Aye.
So, closed. Now, this is on adoption for ordinance 28-20. May we have a motion for adoption?
Motion?
Motion by Mr. Cahill, seconded by Mr. Gallagher. On roll call for adoption of ordinance 28-20. Mr. Cahill.
Aye.
Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Mahalko.
Yes.
Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
And Mr. Faramasca.
Aye.
So adopted. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're now moving to the resolution consent agenda. We have two late items for adding to the consent agenda. The first is a resolution that was discussed in an open conference session at 6 o'clock, dealing with the appointment to the alternate one position on the Board of Adjustment. And members of the Township Committee at that time, without taking a vote, decided that they would nominate and appoint John Corona to serve as the alternate one member, and that's to fill the unexpired two-year term of office of Carol Giorgio, and that term of office ends on December 31st, 2020. And the second resolution, which is a late item, but is necessary for the Township's compliance hearing before Judge Gauss on November 13th, is a resolution of the Township Committee endorsing the amended housing element and fair share plan adopted by the Township Planning Board on September 15th, 2020. And there was a public hearing on those two items before the Planning Board. Are there any questions from members of the governing body on any of the consent agenda items under resolutions?
Motion to move the agenda.
Have a motion by Mr. Francioli to move the consent agenda.
Second.
Second by Mr. Faramasca. On roll call on the resolutions as a consent agenda with the two additional items. Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
Aye.
Mr. Mahalko?
Yes.
Mr. Francioli?
Aye.
And Mr. Faramasca.
Aye.
So approved. Ladies and gentlemen, as we continue with our agenda this evening, the next item is the payment of bills. $4,550,477.24. May we have a motion to pay our bills?
Motion to pay the bills.
We have a motion by the mayor, second by Mr. Gallagher. On roll call to pay our bills, Mr. Cahill.
Aye.
Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Mahalko.
Yes.
Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
And Mr. Faramasca.
Aye.
So approved, we'll pay our bills. Mr. Chairman, members of the Township Committee, I thank you from the bottom of my heart as I complete my portion of the agenda, and I turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Giorgio, for your fine work this evening. At this point in our meeting, I'd like to get a motion to reopen this meeting to the public.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. At this point, if there's any member of the public who is in chamber who would like to address the Township Committee, please state your name and address. Okay, we have a member.
Jim Neidhart, 3414 Appleton Way, Whippany. I'd like to address the committee related to its current use of technology in terms of running these meetings. I run meetings for a living. I conduct meetings with CEOs and presidents of companies all over the United States, and I also run several meetings internationally throughout South America, Central America, and the United States and Canada. Tonight, we witnessed probably 20 to 30, maybe 40 interruptions during the night because of the use of the freeconferenceroom.com. That technology is the equivalent of using 8-track tapes to listen to music. It's a technology that's past, it's gone. When the COVID first hit, we all had to make decisions on how to conduct meetings. And immediately before the state issued any guidance on how to conduct virtual meetings, I spent a fair amount of time with the Secretary to the Board of Adjustment to teach her how to use the Zoom webinar, not to be confused with Zoom meeting. Zoom webinar, I believe, is a tool that you should consider to the extent that we're going to be living in this virtual or hybrid environment. It's a tool that allows you to control the members of the public, their interruptions, and their ability to make background noise. You designate people as panelists, separate and apart from attendees. There's two classes of attendees, what they call attendees and panelists. So everybody that's a professional or a member of the committee would be a panelist and be given a separate code, whether they're here or not. They could have their laptops in front of them, and everybody could be seen visually. The ability to communicate both visually and audio is far superior to participating just by audio. I have participated in a couple of your meetings as a member of the public by freeconferenceroom.com, and I was able to hear at least 50% of the meeting clearly. I was not able to hear a lot of the goings-on. Similarly, you guys on the committee and the professionals have difficulty hearing some of the people that are there. So I would strongly suggest that you look to some type of improvement. Right now, you're meeting the minimum acceptable legal standards for participation and observation by the public. The Zoom video, the Zoom webinar tool would be a drastic improvement from the current situation. And Ms. Bongiorno is very adept at using it. The Board of Adjustment meetings, the first one was good. Everyone since that has been excellent. The professionals submit their items to a Dropbox-type system ahead of time, a Google Drive. Everything gets projected. We have share screens, and you can selectively let people share screens or talk as needed. She's, I would consider, very adept at the use of that tool, and perhaps she could teach others to use that so that you could conduct meetings here in the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neidhart, for expressing your view as to how to improve our communications. We will take it and
Jim, maybe
evaluate.
you consider giving us township employees a little lecture on that and use.
I think you just did.
I could.
Yeah, you just did.
Ms. Bongiorno was very good at it. She knows more than I do at this point.
Well, that would be very helpful. We have a few techies on board here that would probably be very interested in how we can adopt it into our system.
Okay, are there any other members of the public who are in chamber who would like to address the Township Committee? Seeing none, are there any members of the public on the phone conference who would like to address or ask questions of the Township Committee? Hearing none at this time, I'd like to get a motion to close the public portion of our meeting.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All right. At this time, I'd invite the Township Committee, if they want to share some brief highlights of their area of responsibility, and we'll begin with Mr. Cahill.
So I really have only one thing to talk about tonight. We covered the other ordinances, rather thoroughly today, but ordinance 28-2020 having to do with the authorization for the township to acquire the Tuttle House, which again is the home directly east of the Whippany Burying Yard. This is a big win for the township. This has been a goal of the Landmark Commission for a number of years to acquire that property, to acquire that home, and to in time use it as a historic museum. Right now we have an archive room in the community center. It's not open to the public, and there's some really fascinating stuff in there. So this is a first step. Now that it's been memorialized, members of the township administration can now take steps to begin the acquiring process. And just of note, again, this family, they are donating, the Spada family is donating this property and this home and the adjacent property to it, to the township. So huge, huge win.
Thank you, Mr. Cahill. It is big news for our township. It's a great initiative, and it's very generous of the Spada family to donate this treasure to Hanover Township so the people can enjoy it. Okay. Mr. Mahalko, would you like to share some highlights from...
Absolutely. Briefly. Well, it's, as we're creeping back to a little bit of normalcy, we are starting to have some more events going on. First one, we had a scavenger hunt. It has concluded. The award will be, the first place award will be awarded on October 14th, and they will receive a pizza party from Palermo's. Second and third place winners, we're going to have an ice cream party from Last Lick, sponsored by those businesses. So thanks to everyone who participated. It was a lot of fun. They had to go out, take some pictures of different items. It was a pretty neat thing that Rec Department, Denise and crew had put together. Speaking of things coming up, on Sunday, Hanover Wind Symphony is going to be having a concert at Malapartis Park at 2 p.m. Bring your chairs, keep socially distanced, you must wear masks. It's going to be a salute to the armed forces. So hopefully the weather will hold and we'll have a beautiful day. Come out to Malapartis Park. Next up, we have a food drive going on. We had a very successful one in the spring. We collected, wow.
1,600 pounds.
No, it was like 3,000 or 4,000 pounds.
Oh, well,
remember we had to bring,
finally?
We had to bring a truck out, and we filled that truck up.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can do that again. So let me just go over that. Saturday, October 24th, 10 to 1 p.m. It's going to be here at the at Town Hall. You can pull up. We volunteers will come, take the packages out of your car, and put them in the pile. So you don't even have to get out of your car. Just show up, have the stuff in the bag, and we'll grab it and take it from there. Halloween this year falls on October 31st, obviously, falls on a Saturday. We are going to have Boo at the Brickyard. It's going to be a movie night, a drive-in movie night. We have two movies, one at 6 o'clock, which is going to be Hotel Transylvania, and a second one at 8 o'clock. That'll be Casper the Friendly Ghost. So you must register in advance. It's $5 per carload, so you can...
Sorry, can you just repeat where that is?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's at the Brickyard, Bee Meadow Pool parking lot. $5 per carload. You must register in advance. Go check out the website, go to the Community Pass. We still have, it's limited to 75 vehicles, and right now we have 20 for the first viewing and 28 for the second. So there still is availability. So make sure you, again, come out, give something for the kids to do. They're going to receive some snacks when they pull up. They'll have a bag of candy, which is being donated, and some popcorn also. So come out and support.
Thank you,
Short and
Committeeman. When is that food drive going to be? It's
Saturday, October 24th,
and the time?
10 to 1, 10 a.m. to 1
Okay.
p.m.
Thank you so much. I hope Hanover comes out and supports it again as much as they did the last time.
Last time was
Very generous
fantastic,
this year.
fantastic turnout.
Just another question from
Mm-hmm.
Chairman. Will you be doing any advertisements or anything with some of the events that you're talking about? I mean, you're just listing them for us now, but what's the access that?
All of this stuff is on the website. It also gets circulated on Facebook. Check it out, the details are there. HanoverTownship.com.
Okay, Mayor Francioli.
Thank you, Mayor, appreciate it. I want to punctuate what we just talked about, it's so important. Mike was just talking about the food drive. Very, very successful last year, and we thanked everybody in Hanover, as expected, who would come forward. This year, we hope to do much better than that, and certainly we thank Mike for all his help on that particular day, and Party Pleasing Rentals for a truck that was just about able to hold it all when we finally finished up. It was fantastic. This year, it's so more important because of COVID that we can do more and better. This drive is directed to the Interfaith Food Pantry once again. This drive is directed to make sure that families in need have a Thanksgiving dinner. So please, canned goods, non-perishables, etc., please bring them to us. Again, October 24th, 10 to 1. We'll take it from you. You don't have to leave your car. Just open the trunk, pop the side door, and we'll go from there. So thanks, Mike, for that information. I just want to, another little word of advice from our Board of Health. Last year's flu season was, when we looked at it compared to other years, was a really tough one. This year doesn't have to be a tough one. We have very effective vaccines this year, and our own clinic right here in Hanover, the second date now for you to get your flu shot, if you're going to go through us, is October the 21st from 2 to 4. More information will be announced shortly on that. We had 2 dates for the public, October the 5th, which is bygone, and October the 21st. Now, you will have to give us a call, make an appointment. This isn't a walk-in, this is an appointment. Under the circumstances with COVID, you can appreciate what that's all about. So we'll have more details for you, or you can contact our Board of Health directly and get information when you reserve it. I was just handed by the administrator something that really warms my heart. It's something that we as a Township Committee, want to recognize one of our own. Over the years, Sal Iannacone, as you know, lost his life, passed away a few weeks ago. Sal, of 97 years old, gave half his life to this township, half his life. We want to honor him. We know that his thoughts are always with Hanover and still with Hanover. And one of the ways we're going to honor him is we're going to take Heritage Lane that he lived on for all these years. And Heritage Lane will remain Heritage Lane, but guess what? That's the addition. That's the addition. Sal's way, and I'm sure we're going to hear from you. So, Mr. Mayor, that's my comments for this evening. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, you're remote. If you have anything that you really want us to key in on, I'll try to amplify it for you. Go ahead.
No, I just want to say that I want to thank quite a few of our departments. We've been working pretty hard for 2 or 3 months. Engineering has been doing an incredible job. And they will be removing $20,000 worth of hazardous trees because, as you know, we've been battling the Emerald Dashboard. They've been on top of that. We have a couple new crosswalks going in. we've been working closely, keeping in touch with Committeeman Mahalko, with the Recreation Department. And not a lot gets done without Bill Burns sitting at the table with us. So just for tonight, everybody's been very busy. Our professionals are fantastic. And it's all about them. I want to thank them. And that's it, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, a couple of quick ones for you. Environmental. We got a very active environmental green team. There will be free paper shred day on November 14th in town parking area of the municipal lot. Please also consider bringing food for Thanksgiving food drives. We will collect both. It'll be a contactless experience. You'll pull up in your car, and we will take everything out of your trunk for you. You don't need to do anything. So please, take advantage of that. Secondly, Hanover Township won an initiative for compost bins. And the compost bin program was sponsored by Sustainable New Jersey, and through a generous grant of PSE&G of $10,000, we bought compost bins. They were given out on a lottery basis. If there's anyone who has not claimed their compost bin by tomorrow, you're out of luck, because the runners-up are going to be notified on Monday to come and collect their compost bins. So we appreciate you actively coming up here if you need to get them at the DPW yard. Voting. We encourage you. You've all gotten your ballots in Hanover Township by now. We encourage you to turn in those ballots. You can drop them off in a mailbox. You can bring them to designated areas. It's on our website. So please, we encourage you to vote. At this time, are there any other issues of Township Committee we'd like to put forward? If not, can we get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all for your attention and your support this evening.
Okay.
Giorgio, thank you as well for a very awesome performance.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mr. Gallagher.
Good night, John. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Ace.